Adolf Hitler was one bad dude. There remain a few more facts about Hitler that are worth highlighting, for they are remarkably little known.
He was history's monster, a name synonymous with ultimate evil. But behind the atrocities lies a man of bizarre contradictions and shocking secrets. From his strange personal habits to his mysterious final hours, these little-known facts reveal a chilling portrait. Prepare to see the dictator as you never have before, as we unveil 33 strange facts you didn't know about Adolf Hitler. Number 33. Almost Adolf Schicklgruber. The infamous name Hitler was almost never his. His father, Alois, was born out of wedlock and registered with his mother's surname, Schicklgruber. For the first 39 years of his life, he was Alois Schicklgruber. It was only in 1877, over a decade before Adolf's birth, that he legally changed it to Hitler, a variant of his presumed father's name, Hiedler. The change was likely for social legitimacy, as illegitimacy carried a heavy stigma. The world-shaking impact of the name Hitler is a historical fact, but it forces a strange historical question. Would the rallying cry, Heil Schicklgruber, have held the same power? Number 32. Uncertain paternal grandfather. A significant mystery surrounds Adolf Hitler's origins. The identity of his paternal grandfather remains unknown. His father, Alois Hitler, was the illegitimate son of Maria Anna Schicklgruber, who refused or failed to name a father. The most commonly suggested candidate is Johann Georg Hiedler, a man who later married Maria Anna, yet never formally acknowledged paternity. That absence of documentation has encouraged persistent speculation and competing claims for more than a century. Historians and amateur sleuths alike have proposed theories to fill the gap. The missing grandfather is more than a genealogical curiosity. It is a small, unsettling blank in the biography of a man responsible for enormous human suffering. Number 31. Rumored Jewish ancestry. A long-standing and ironic rumor claims that Hitler might have had Jewish ancestry. This claim was circulated after the war by Hans Frank, a Nazi official awaiting trial. He alleged Hitler's grandmother became pregnant while working in a Jewish household. However, mainstream historians have thoroughly discredited this story. Research found no evidence that a Jewish family named Frankenberger lived in the cited town at that time. This rumor is now widely seen as a myth, a piece of grim historical irony, but not a factual part of his lineage. It highlights how his own obsessive, hateful ideology created a backdrop for such speculative stories to flourish. Number 30. Parents were cousins. Adding to the complex and often troubled history of his family, Hitler's parents were blood relatives. His father, Alois, married his second cousin, Clara Pölzl. The family connections were deeply tangled. Clara was also the granddaughter of Johann Nepomuk Hitler, the man who was both Alois's step-uncle and his most likely biological father. Their marriage required a special dispensation from the Catholic Church due to their close relationship. Clara, who was 23 years younger than Alois, had previously worked as his housemaid. This closely intermarried family background is a factual detail of his origins, separate from the monstrous actions of his later life. Number 29. Many siblings died young. Hitler's childhood was marked by repeated family tragedy. He was one of 6 children born to Alois and Clara Hitler, but only he and his younger sister Paula survived into adulthood. His full brothers, Gustav and Ida, died in infancy from common diseases. Then, when Adolf was 11, his 6-year-old brother, Edmund, died from measles. These deaths, especially Edmund's, deeply affected the family. Biographers say young Adolf became quieter and moodier after his brother died. The experience of such loss was a dark shadow over his early years in Austria. Number 28. Childhood ambition to be a priest. Before his radicalization, young Adolf Hitler had surprisingly conventional aspirations. As a boy, he was a seemingly devout Catholic who sang in the choir at the Benedictine monastery in Lambach. He was so influenced by the pageantry and authority of the church that he seriously considered becoming a priest. Interestingly, the monastery's coat of arms featured a swastika, a symbol he would later corrupt for his own movement. This early religious phase didn't last, but it shows a sharp contrast between the boy who once admired priests and the man who later led a regime of violence and terror. Number 27. Deeply affected by brother's death. The death of Hitler's younger brother Edmund from measles in 1900 was a pivotal event in his childhood. Before this tragedy, accounts describe Adolf as a confident, outgoing, and reasonably good student. After Edmund's death at age 6, the 11-year-old Adolf underwent a dramatic personality shift. He became morose, antagonistic towards his father, and his grades plummeted. Historians see this loss as a turning point that made him more withdrawn and angry. The once lively home was now quiet, with only Adolf and his younger sister Paula left in a sad and heavy atmosphere. Number 26. Frustrated artist. Hitler's first major life failure was his rejection from the art world. In 1907 and again in 1908, he applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts, dreaming of becoming a painter. His portfolios were rejected both times. The Academy assessed that his work showed unsatisfactory skill in drawing, though they noted a perhaps better aptitude for architecture. However, without a secondary school diploma, that path was closed to him. These rejections left him deeply embittered and without a clear direction. This period of failure in Vienna is seen as crucial in shaping his resentment and anger towards established societal institutions. Number 25. Lived in a homeless shelter. Following his artistic rejections and after squandering his inheritance, Hitler descended into extreme poverty in Vienna. By 1909, he could no longer afford rent and was forced to sleep on park benches and beg for food. He eventually found refuge in a men's homeless shelter in the Meidling district. This shelter provided a basic bed and meager meals, representing the absolute lowest point of his young adult life. He later described this time as one of utter misery. This experience of destitution and humiliation on the streets of a major multicultural city profoundly influenced his worldview and fueled his growing radicalization and hatred. Number 24. Practical mustache. The source of Hitler's infamous toothbrush mustache was not style, but brutal practicality. During his service in World War I, he initially wore a full, bushy Kaiser-style mustache. However, the advent of chemical warfare introduced gas masks, which required a tight seal around the face to be effective. His large mustache prevented this seal, creating a lethal hazard. He was therefore ordered to trim it down to the small, rectangular patch that would become his permanent trademark. This bizarre facial hair, a direct result of military necessity, later became one of the most recognizable and sinister visual symbols of the 20th century. Number 23. Avowed vegetarian. Adolf Hitler is famously known for being a vegetarian later in his life. From around 1942 onward, he strictly avoided meat, a fact confirmed by his food tasters and even forensic analysis of his teeth. The reasons behind this choice are still debated. Some accounts say it was due to concern for animal suffering, while others suggest it was for health reasons or on his doctor's advice. He was known to lecture dinner guests with gruesome descriptions of animal slaughter to put them off their meat. However, this image was also heavily promoted by Nazi propaganda to portray him as an ascetic and virtuous leader. Number 22. Teetotaler and non-smoker. In line with the image of a clean-living leader, Hitler did not drink alcohol or smoke. This was a core part of the public persona crafted by his propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, who wanted to present Hitler as a disciplined and focused leader without vices. This image of abstaining from common indulgences was meant to set him apart from other politicians and align with the Nazi ideal of physical purity. It was a powerful tool in building the Führer myth, designed to make him appear entirely dedicated to the nation's well-being, untainted by personal weaknesses or corrupting habits. Number 21. Heavy drug use. The public image of a healthy leader was a complete lie. In private, Hitler was heavily dependent on a cocktail of drugs administered by his personal physician, Dr. Theodor Morell. From 1936 until his death, he received regular injections that included powerful substances like oxycodone, methamphetamine, morphine, and even cocaine. At the time, these animal gland extracts and stimulants were popularly, though mistakenly, believed to be elixirs of youth. This extensive drug use likely had severe consequences, potentially impacting his physical health and mental state, especially during the latter stages of the war. Number 20. Animal lover. Despite his profound cruelty towards humans, Hitler professed a great love for animals. He often expressed distress over images of animal suffering and was an opponent of vivisection, that is, experimentation on live animals. This personal sentiment was reflected in his regime's policies, which introduced some of the world's first comprehensive animal welfare laws. This stark contradiction is both strange and revealing. It shows a man capable of expressing empathy for animals while simultaneously orchestrating a world war and the systematic murder of millions of people, highlighting a deeply compartmentalized and twisted moral worldview. Number 19. Devoted to his German Shepherd. Hitler had a strong attachment to his German Shepherd, Blondie. She was a constant companion and was with him in his final days in the underground Führerbunker in Berlin. The depth of this bond, however, is overshadowed by a final, horrific act. As the Soviet army closed in, and just before he and Eva Braun committed suicide, Hitler allegedly tested a cyanide capsule on Blondie to ensure its potency. This act symbolizes the ultimate perversion of his relationships, turning what he presented as devotion into a final, cruel act of control and destruction. Number 18. Unconventional work schedule. Hitler kept a highly unconventional and chaotic work schedule. He was a notorious night owl, often staying up very late and disliking early mornings. This habit had real consequences during the war. A famous example is that on the morning of the D-Day landings in Normandy, one of the most critical moments of the war, his staff delayed waking him up with the crucial news. This delay, caused by his own erratic routine, potentially hampered the German military's response and is a telling detail about his leadership style in the war's final years. Number 17. Enjoyed whistling tunes. A strangely mundane habit for a man responsible for so much horror, Hitler was known to whistle tunes casually. His alleged favorites included popular Disney songs of the era like Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf and When You Wish Upon a Star. This ordinary, almost childlike quirk creates a jarring contrast with his actions. It serves as a reminder that monsters can have seemingly normal human habits, making the profound evil he perpetrated all the more complex and difficult to comprehend. Number 16. Stateless for 7 years. Before becoming the dictator of Germany, Adolf Hitler wasn't even a German citizen. He was an Austrian by birth and had renounced his Austrian citizenship in 1925. This made him a stateless man for 7 years, a huge obstacle for someone with political ambitions. He could not run for office. This problem was only solved in February 1932, just before that year's presidential election, when he was appointed to a civil service post in the state of Braunschweig, which automatically granted him German citizenship. It was a legal technicality that opened the door to absolute power. Number 15. Never personally won a national election. A common misconception is that Hitler was democratically elected. In reality, he never won a national election. He ran for president in 1932, but was soundly defeated by the incumbent, Paul von Hindenburg, who received 53% of the vote to Hitler's 36%. Later, while his Nazi party became the largest in the Reichstag, it never won an outright majority. Hitler was not chosen by the people. He was appointed chancellor in January 1933 through a series of backroom political deals with conservatives who wrongly believed they could control him. Number 14. Nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. In one of history's most ironic moments, Adolf Hitler was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 1939. The nomination came from a Swedish legislator named Erik Gottfried Christian Brandt. However, it was not a genuine endorsement. Brandt was a staunch anti-fascist who intended the act as a sarcastic criticism of Hitler and the Western powers' appeasement policy. He wanted to nail him to the wall of shame. The provocative move caused widespread outrage, and Brandt, surprised by the misunderstanding, quickly withdrew the nomination just a few days later. Number 13. Time magazine's Man of the Year. In 1938, Adolf Hitler appeared on the cover of Time magazine as their Man of the Year. This often confuses, as it sounds like an honor. However, Time has always stated the title is not an endorsement, but a recognition of the person who most significantly impacted the news that year, for better or worse. The cover story described him as the greatest threatening force in the world. By choosing Hitler, the magazine was acknowledging his terrifying power and the looming threat of war he represented, a grim reflection of the world's anxious focus on his actions. Number 12. Became a billionaire. While preaching a message of national sacrifice, Hitler secretly amassed a vast personal fortune. His wealth, estimated to be in the billions in today's money, came from several shady sources. He siphoned money directly from the state, received massive donations from German industrialists, and claimed a huge income from his book Mein Kampf. The Nazi government even bought millions of copies to give as mandatory state wedding gifts, which earned him enormous royalties. This system ensured the dictator who sent his nation to war lived in immense luxury, funded directly by the German people he claimed to serve. Number 11. Looted art for a super museum. Hitler, a failed artist, orchestrated history's largest art theft. He ordered the systematic looting of masterpieces from museums and Jewish families across occupied Europe. This wasn't just for greed, it was for a grand, vain project. He planned a colossal Führer Museum in his hometown of Linz, Austria, a super museum meant to showcase Aryan cultural supremacy and glorify his legacy. Special Nazi units dedicated themselves to this cultural plunder, stealing countless priceless works. Many of these pieces were never recovered, their loss a permanent scar on the world's cultural heritage. Number 10. Involved in Volkswagen Beetle design. The famous Volkswagen Beetle has a direct link to Hitler. he conceptualized the idea for an affordable people's car, a Volkswagen that the average German family could own. He provided the basic concept, a simple, reliable vehicle that could carry a family, and contracted engineer Ferdinand Porsche to bring it to life. A popular legend claims Hitler himself sketched the car's iconic rounded shape. While Porsche was the real engineer, the project was entirely a Nazi initiative, intended to bolster his public image and promote the idea of a modern, motorized Germany, though few cars were actually delivered to the public before the war. Number 9. Decorated WWI soldier. During World War I, Adolf Hitler served as a dispatch runner for the German army, a dangerous job that involved carrying messages between the front lines and command posts. Contrary to some post-war myths, he was considered a brave soldier. He was wounded in 1916, and in 1918 was awarded the Iron Cross, First Class, a rare honor for a low-ranking corporal. This military service was a core part of his later political identity. He used his war record to present himself as a patriot who had suffered and fought for Germany, which helped him gain credibility with veterans and the public. Number 8. Purported hysterical blindness. Near the end of World War I, Hitler was temporarily blinded after a British mustard gas attack. While he always claimed this was the cause, some historians point to a different theory based on medical records from the time. They suggest he may have suffered from hysterical blindness, a condition now known as conversion disorder, where intense psychological distress manifests as physical symptoms. The prospect of Germany's defeat could have triggered a psychosomatic reaction. This theory remains debated, but it highlights the complex intersection of his physical and mental state during a formative period. Number 7. Survived dozens of assassination attempts. It is believed that Adolf Hitler survived over 20 assassination attempts throughout his life. The most famous was the July 20th, 1944, plot led by Klaus von Stauffenberg, who planted a briefcase bomb in Hitler's headquarters. The bomb detonated, but a heavy table leg shielded Hitler, leaving him with minor injuries. These repeated failures fueled his narcissistic belief that he was protected by destiny or providence. The aftermath was brutal. The Nazis executed thousands of people, including many suspected opponents, in a massive and bloody purge that solidified their grip on power through terror. Number 6. Never visited a concentration camp. Despite being the central architect of the Holocaust, it is widely believed that Hitler never personally visited a single concentration or extermination camp. He deliberately kept his distance, managing the genocide through written orders and verbal directives to subordinates like Himmler and Heydrich. This separation allowed him to maintain a layer of psychological denial and avoid direct confrontation with the industrial-scale horror he had set in motion. It underscores the cold, bureaucratic nature of the final solution: a mass murder orchestrated from a comfortable distance without the leader ever looking his victims in the eye. Number 5. Nephew served in the US Navy. In a strange twist of fate, Hitler had a nephew who fought for the United States. William Patrick Hitler, the son of Adolf's half-brother, Alois Jr., initially tried to leverage his family name for business in Germany. After falling out with his uncle, he fled to the US, and in 1944, he enlisted in the US Navy. He served for 3 years, was wounded in action, and was awarded a Purple Heart. He later changed his last name, wanting to leave the infamous connection behind and live an anonymous life in America. Number 4. No living direct descendants. Adolf Hitler and his wife, Eva Braun, had no children together, and there is no credible evidence that he had any offspring with anyone else. His bloodline effectively ended with his suicide in 1945. The last known direct relatives are the children of his nephew, William Patrick Hitler. Reports indicate that these three sons, born in the USA, made a pact not to have children of their own, ensuring that the Hitler name and direct lineage would die out with them. This was a conscious choice to end a family legacy associated with unparalleled historical tragedy. Number 3. Married at the very end. In the final desperate days of World War II, with Soviet forces just streets away from his underground bunker, Adolf Hitler did something many found surprising. He married his longtime companion, Eva Braun. For years, Braun had been kept largely out of the public eye, her relationship with the dictator a secret from the German people. Their wedding was a bleak and hurried civil ceremony held in the map room of the Führer bunker on April 29, 1945. There was no family, no celebration, just a few officials as witnesses. Less than 40 hours after saying, "I do," the newlyweds would be dead, having committed suicide together in their suite, bringing a grim end to their relationship. Number 2. Soviets kept his skull fragment. After Hitler's suicide, Soviet troops recovered his badly burned body. In the following years, a grisly relic was kept by the Soviet Secret Service as a macabre war trophy, a fragment of skull, complete with a bullet hole, said to be Hitler's. This artifact was used for decades to support the official story of his death by gunshot. However, in 2009, American researchers conducted DNA tests on the skull fragment. The results were shocking. The bone actually belonged to a woman under the age of 40. This discovery immediately reignited countless conspiracy theories, suggesting everything from a cover-up to a potential escape, despite overwhelming evidence that Hitler did indeed die in the bunker. Number 1. His remains were secretly destroyed. The story of Hitler's body doesn't end in the bunker. The Soviets, who first found it, secretly buried and then repeatedly moved the remains to prevent them from becoming a neo-Nazi shrine or a symbol for his followers. The final chapter came in 1970. As the Soviet Union prepared to hand over a military base to East Germany, it worried the burial site would be discovered. On a direct order from KGB Chief Yuri Andropov, the remains of Hitler, Eva Braun, and their family were exhumed one last time, completely cremated, crushed into ashes, and secretly scattered in a nearby river, ensuring no physical trace would remain to be venerated.